It is that time again where we have completed a Final Fantasy, this time being Final Fantasy IX. You can watch the Platinum series video just there. And now it's time to rank its characters in today's tier list. But a few disclaimers for my particular tier list. Most people usually base their tier lists on combat abilities and what they bring to the table. I will also do that, but I will also take into consideration their story and their character in general and what they brought to Final Fantasy IX and what they brought to me. So they're the rules, just so you know why I've made certain decisions along the tier list. With that all being said though, what is up guys, Jen here, hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the channel. As always, I've got you covered with timestamps, so if you want to skip to your favorite Final Fantasy IX character and see where I rank it, feel free to do so, whatever floats your boat. You could even skip to the end of the video if you want to and see what my final ranking is, but don't you dare comment because you do not know how I got to that decision. So I really do suggest that you watch each character and why I ranked it the way I did, and we can create a bit of discussion and really have a good time. All I ask is for you to hit the thumbs up button and support the channel. So let's get straight into it. I'm going to flip over to we have the tier list here at the ready, and again I've gone for the pixel characters from Record Keeper because I really want to keep that kind of thing going with this. But you would have noticed that I only have Marcus on here, and a little bit different for this one is that Marcus is going to represent 3 characters for a number of reasons. The first reason being because there's no pixel art of Blank and Sinner, so I can't really add them to this. And second, because they all kind of class as a group in my opinion, especially when it comes to their story and what they do bring to combat the very few times that we have them. And because we have Marcus just a little bit more than the rest of them, he is going to be the face that runs the place when it comes to the Tantalus Trio. So I think that's all being said. We've got all of the characters that we play as, including Beatrix as well, and I think we can just dive straight in with our main character of Final Fantasy IX, Zidane. Where am I going to rank Zidane? So let's kind of weigh up what he brings to combat. He is the main character, he is the character that we kind of go with for the majority of the game, except those segments where we go and follow different characters, mainly Garnet, Steiner, and their little antics that they've got going on when they split off at Limblum. But apart from that, it's Zidane all the way. So it's the main character, it's the main story kind of go to. He is the character that we are going to be playing as the most. So he is our thief, he falls into that class, and in Final Fantasy IX is very vital when it comes to stealing items. There are items to be stolen from all of the bosses, some rare, some not so rare, some items that you can get a little bit later, but if you steal them you can get a little bit earlier. So that's always a good thing, except when you're trying to steal the goddamn fairy flute, because the steal rates on that is absolutely terrible, but that's another story for another time, I think. So just looking as Zidane, I really enjoy playing as Zidane. I like stealing. There's just something addictive about it in Final Fantasy IX, something satisfying about stealing in Final Fantasy IX. And I guess we could really touch on trances just a little bit because we don't really see them, but he does have a plethora of abilities. Again, most of the characters when they are trans, they're more powerful than they are. They offer a few little traits here and there when it comes to individual abilities, when it comes to like black magic for Vivi and white magic for Garnet. But apart from that, it just kind of boosts their morale and gives them a few abilities to just help them out that little bit. So, all things considered, and we're not really touched on Zidane's story, it really kind of develops from his like happy-go-lucky beginning to really finding out who he is and realizing he is not alone. I had to go with that little punchline there. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. But I'm going to put Zidane straight in S tier for me. I don't know if you guys will agree or not, but you can let me know in the comment section down below. Next, we are looking at Marcus and the Tantalus Trio. So in terms of gameplay, they're all pretty much the same as the like little mini Zidanes. They can steal and they all carry their own unique weapons, Blank and Marcus being the swords that Steiner can equip, and Cinna being his little hammer. But when it comes to combat abilities, they're very generic, and for that reason they would go straight into probably C. But it's their story. Cinna, not so much. He doesn't really bring too much to the story. He just likes making dolls, and he loves the dolls he makes. But it's the brothership of Blank and Marcus that really make them quite the dynamic duo, and really kind of two characters to really like along this, and made me wish we had more of them. Maybe have them instead of other main characters we'll talk about just a little bit later. But I think all things being considered, I'm going to just put them straight into C tier. So we're moving on to our black mage of the game, which is Vivi. And Vivi, I think we all know where he's going to go, but let's just talk about it for just a second. He is the black mage. One thing I didn't like about Vivi is his low MP pool. It's just on par with everyone else. If you're going to make someone a black mage and want them to use their magic, boost their MP up so they can actually use it and not run out of MP dead fast. That was the only problem I had with him. When it comes to trance, he can use double black magic. It can be quite helpful in sticky situations, but he just kind of has that magic utility and he delivers it pretty well. When it comes to the story, he has probably the best story of Final Fantasy IX, from finding out who he is and just his relationship with every single character he comes across, and his just general aura he brings to the table. And I think you will all agree that we're going to put him in front of Zidane, and he is going to be in S tier also. Now we are moving on to our knight of the party, which is Steiner. Steiner is a character that is hard to get on with at first just because of his general nature. It's quite funny, the things he does, but as we go along through the story, he is quite a lovable character, and he opens up to a lot of people along the way, especially Beatrix. The relationship we never got quite in the game, but it was certainly alluded to in the ending. Now when it comes to combat, he is a beast, though his kind of ability set is like a beta tester for Auron for Final Fantasy X when it comes to all the break abilities, because they don't hit. He brings some almighty DPS to the party, and when he is tranced, he obviously enhances that just a little bit more. He just have the sword art kind of magic thing with Vivi, but you need to have them in the same party. If you don't have them in the party, you're not really going to witness it very much. You'll witness it in the beginning of the game because it's a tutorial, but apart from that, you're probably not going to use it. But with that just pushed to the side anyway, he is great at damage. He brings the DPS, and I had a really good time using Steiner. He was in my final party, and for that reason, he is going just behind Zidane here in S. It's looking good so far for the Final Fantasy IX crew, but we're going to talk about Garnet. We're going to talk about Dagger. We're going to talk about, spoilers, Sarah. She is our white mage, our summoner. And, you know, she really helps out at the beginning of the game when it comes to battle. We don't unlock her summons till later in the game. They are pretty decent summons. I really like the animations of the summons that she has, especially Arc when you unlock it. Pretty kick-ass, you've got to agree. When it comes to her white magic, she's very generic. I do think we'll talk about this a little bit later when we get to Eiko, but she is just like a budget Eiko in some regards, and we can't forget that her combat abilities in a certain part of the game are inaccessible. She can't talk, she can't use a magic, she can't really do anything. It's very RNG based if she attacks or not, and that was quite to my detriment when I decided to take her along with my crew in that part of the game. I regret it because I didn't get very good rolls on her attacks or her magic, and she didn't use it, so I was a little bit salty about that. When it comes to her story, she has a lot in terms of the story of Final Fantasy IX. She starts off with a princess, she's obviously adopted, she has more to her backstory when it comes to the summoners of the game, and you know, it is a really nice story and a kind of coming of age for her when she just wants to be her, and she cuts that hair and she is fully embraced, just moving on and being her own person, and that's something really to look up to. But just the way she is in game, I'm going to stick her straight in the B tier for that reason, because again, she just doesn't bring much to the table, and there is that part of the game where she absolutely sucks, in quite honest. So let's move on to Freya, our Dragoon of Final Fantasy IX. And Freya started off strong. She started off really strong. Her introduction, the bit of banter between Zidane, and then the Festival of the Hunt, and then it ties straight into going to Brumecia and the attack on that and going to the Clay Retreat and her history with Fratly. What a nice story. It's just a shame that's where it ends for her. Apart from that, she is irrelevant to the plot of Final Fantasy IX. They could have carried out this on like I spoke about in the Platinum series video. They could have had the Fratly relationship kind of build up towards what they got to in the ending, but they didn't. They just kind of, you know, your story's over, we'll push you over to the side. And now let's talk about her combat abilities. She's a Dragoon, she's got jump, she has a few abilities that are useful when you first have her, like the Raise Wind. It was nice to have a regen on the party that didn't have a white mage at that part of the story. Apart from that, I scrapped her as soon as that story beat moved on. So, you know, I'm gonna have to put her on a C here below the Tantalus Trio for that reason. Next is our blue mage of the group, Quina. She is a memorable character. We all know about them, and they definitely bring some stuff to the table in Final Fantasy IX. Now let's touch on story first. There's not much there because they don't adapt on the Q kind of race that much. There's just 3 of them in the game, so there's not much you can really do. She has an obsession for frogs. She has an obsession for cooking. Pretty weak through and through, though he has the most funniest moments in the game, be it through the ATEs or just the main story beats. I always have a laugh with Quina. Now when it comes to combat abilities, Blue Mage. I absolutely love Blue Mage, and they brought Blue Mage back to form in Final Fantasy IX because it wasn't gated behind a limit break. You didn't have to wait to use it. You learned it through the eat or the cook command, and I had a great time doing that. So I'm going to be very biased, and I'm going to put Quina in S tier, and I'm going to put, you know, above Steiner. Because not only does she have great blue magic that you can learn throughout the game, and useful blue magic, especially things like Magic Hammer, but she has some great DPS, especially if you get their ultimate fork. They're dishing out just as good numbers, just a little bit less than Steiner, but good numbers nonetheless. So that is why Quina is going in S. So it continues to look good for the crew of Final Fantasy IX so far, but we're going to talk about Eiko. And, you know, we elaborated on it just a little bit with Garnet / Dagger / Sarah. And, you know, I think straight off the bat, you know that she's going to be in A for that reason. You know, actually, I'm going to redact that and put her in just above Garnet here, because she is a white mage. She has summons, she does have better kind of combat prowess. Her story, you know, is very one hit, much like Freya when it comes to terms with it, but she's much better than Garnet, and I ended up not using her in my final party, but I wish I did. There was moments where I should have used her instead of the mute just next to her there on B tier. So not much being said about Eiko because there's not much to say. She's going straight in the B tier. Now we're going to talk about Beatrix, and we only get to play with her for a small smidgen of a game, but she's playable, and that's what counts to be eligible for this tier list. Now, that being said, her story is not touched upon as much as I would like it to, because I would love to have more backstory on Beatrix. We get a little bit on the Red Rose, we get a little bit when she fights side by Steiner, and just a few little story beats leading up to the coronation of Garnet. But apart from that, not much, but it's quite clear that she was probably on the cards somewhere to be quite prevalent in Final Fantasy IX, and I missed that. I wanted more. And, you know, she's kick ass in battle with her abilities as well. We go against her, we fight with her, and in both scenarios, she kicks ass. So I think for that reason, I would love to put her straight in S, but we just don't get that much of her. So I'm going to slide her straight into A. You know what? High B, actually, because we don't play with her much. It's quite ironic because it's Beatrix. B, is it a match made in heaven? I don't think so. If we got to play with her more in Final Fantasy IX, she'd be much higher. But I think with the time we had with her and the story that was presented and, you know, what we wanted, I think she's fine where she is. Now we move on to the final character of Final Fantasy IX. And do you remember this guy? This is Amarant, the red Amarant. I forgot what his name was, and I'd literally completed the game about a week ago at the time of recording this video. The Flaming Amarant, I think it was. This is supposed to be our monk of the party, and I've not used him that much to kind of give you a really good analysis of what he brings to the table, but I really didn't see any perks of him being there. There's only one thing he had that was worthwhile, and that's his ability that brings auto life and auto regen. I think it's one of his chakras. That's probably the best ability he brings to the table for me, but I didn't really use him unless I needed to, or it was a story requirement. Talking about story, there's not much there. There is really not much there. I think we get more from Beatrix and the Tantalus Trio than we get from this guy. And I might be wrong in a few places. I might have not explored the character enough, but that's where you guys come in and you can let me know, you know what, Jen, if you play through it again, if you do this, you might have a better time with him. But the time that I had with him during this playthrough was not that great. And for that reason, he is going in to D tier for that reason. And some of you might be happy with that, some of you might not be happy with that, but regardless, this is my tier list, the experience I had with these characters, and there you have it. That is the tier list in a nutshell. Just remember that Marcus represents 3 characters if you got to this part of the video and you're wondering what the hell is going on. But if you've watched it all the way through, I do thank you for watching, and I'm really interested to see your thoughts in the comment section below. Now let's switch back to my beautiful face so I can close out this video. If you haven't liked the video already, please hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content from me, hit the notification bell if you want to be notified of that content, and as always, you need to get involved in that comment section below because it's a real good time. I learn a lot of lessons in there that I've not known before, because this Platinum series, playing through the Final Fantasies, doing these tier lists, have opened so many doors and so many conversations that I thoroughly enjoy. And if you want to continue that conversation outside of the comment section below, join the Discord, because we got a cool bunch of people there, and I really would love for you to kind of come on over and talk more Final Fantasy with me and those folks over there. So there we have it, my tier list on the Final Fantasy IX cast. And you know, again, if you don't agree with me, just let me know. My tier list, love to hear yours. You listen to me, I'll listen to you. It works both ways. Thank you for your time, and until next time, I'll catch you on the flip side.